I didn't want to pay the money for a shorter track for my circular saw, so I built myself this one out of readily accessible materials and for very little money. And it works just like the original track. And a track like this will fit almost every circular saw out there, doesn't have to be a fancy one. To make this, I got myself a piece of plywood, another strip of plywood that will be the splinter guard, another piece of plywood, an aluminium U-channel to guide the saw, spray paint, varnish, wood glue, and foam tape to make the track stick to the material. First I sanded the inside of the channel to then glue in one of the pieces of plywood. I clamped everything together tightly to let it cure overnight. The next day I put it on a warm radiator to let it fully dry. To make it a bit easier to put the saw on the track, I chamfered the edges on the router table. And then I trimmed it to height using the table saw. Next I drilled the holes for hanging the track on the wall. Then I set my router to cut 1.5 mm deep and cut the grooves for the foam tape. And then with my router cutting 6 mm deep, I cut the rabbet for the splinter guard. And as usual, at one point I didn't pay attention. To kind of fit the theme of the saw a little bit, I spray painted the track a lovely green. And then I gave the whole thing 2 coats of clear varnish. Finally, I cut the groove for the aluminium track and glued it in place. And then I just needed to stick on the foam tape and the splinter guard. The splinter guard was trimmed to fit the saw and the track is now ready for use. I just need to line up the track with my marks, put the saw on the track and then make my cut. And even across the grain it cuts without producing any kind of tear out. I noticed that it seems like the saw is a little more stable than on the original track. It doesn't slide quite as nicely, but still pretty smoothly. Of course, the track can be clamped down if necessary.